Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. The information provided in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute professional legal, financial, or psychological advice. Divorce laws vary significantly by state and individual circumstances, and the economic trends discussed are based on historical data and sociological observations. You should not act upon any information in this video without first seeking advice from a qualified attorney, financial planner, or licensed professional in your specific jurisdiction. Every case is unique, and potential outcomes depend on a variety of factors beyond the scope of this general discussion. Please conduct your own due diligence and consult with experts before making any major life decisions. The most expensive thing you will ever buy is not a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs, a German-engineered luxury SUV, or even a college education for your children. The most expensive thing you will ever buy is the signature you put on a marriage license that you were not prepared to defend. In the United States, divorce is not just a personal tragedy. It is a $50 billion a year industry that thrives on the wreckage of the American household. Statistics from historical trends suggest that approximately 40 to 50% of first marriages in the U.S. end in dissolution, and for second and third marriages, those rates climb even higher. But what they don't tell you is how the machinery of U.S. consumerism has been meticulously designed to lead men into a financial and emotional labyrinth. We have been sold a version of the American dream that is built on high-interest debt, social signaling, and a provider complex that often leaves men standing in a courtroom wondering where it all went wrong. If you are a man watching this, you might feel like you are the only one facing this mountain of legal fees, asset division, and the sudden loss of the lifestyle you worked decades to build. But the truth is, you are part of a massive demographic shift that is finally starting to look at the intersection of marital law and consumer culture. By the end of this deep dive masterclass, you will understand the hidden economic forces that make divorce so devastating in the modern era, the psychological traps of the lifestyle subsidy, and the exact framework you need to shift your mindset from a consumer to a protector of your own future. This is the information that the matrimonial industry and big box retailers don't want you to process, because once you see the connection between your spending habits and your legal vulnerability, the entire game changes. To understand why divorce is so uniquely punishing for the modern American man, we have to look at the historical trends of U.S. consumerism. For the last 70 years, the U.S. economy has been driven by the nuclear family as the primary unit of consumption. Marketing campaigns from the post-World War II era weren't just selling toasters and station wagons, they were selling a specific identity for men. That identity was the provider. This wasn't just a social role, it was an economic mandate. You were told that your value as a husband and a father was directly proportional to your ability to acquire assets. You were encouraged to take on a 30-year mortgage to prove your stability. You were pushed to buy engagement rings that cost 3 months' salary. A marketing tactic popularized by De Beers in the mid-20th century that has since become an unquestioned social law. You were conditioned to believe that a happy wife meant a happy life, which in consumer terms, often translated to a well-funded lifestyle. However, this consumerist framework creates a massive structural risk during a divorce. When a marriage dissolves in a no-fault legal environment, the court does not look at who worked the overtime shifts or who sacrificed their hobbies to pay for the kitchen remodel. The court looks at the marital estate. In a consumer-driven society, that estate is often comprised of depreciating assets and massive liabilities. Case studies of high-earning men show a recurring pattern. They spend 20 years accumulating stuff, the boat, the luxury vacations, the designer furniture, only to find that at the moment of impact, these items have little resale value but represent a massive drain on liquid capital. The lifestyle creep that consumerism encourages ensures that most men are living right at the edge of their means. When the household splits, the expenses don't just double, they explode. You are suddenly responsible for 2 roofs, 2 sets of utilities, and a legal retainer that can range from $5,000 to $50,000 just to get the process started. The problem is exacerbated by the dual income trap. Historically, the American middle class could survive on one income. Today, consumerism has pushed the cost of living, especially in desirable school districts, to a point where 2 incomes are a necessity. When a divorce occurs, the math simply stops working. You cannot maintain a 2-income lifestyle on 2 separate 1-income budgets. This is where the potential outcomes become grim for men who haven't studied the mechanics of the system. You find yourself paying for a lifestyle you no longer inhabit while trying to rebuild your own life from scratch in a studio apartment. This isn't just a failure of a relationship. It is the natural conclusion of a consumerist trap that encouraged you to over-leverage your future for a present-day image of success. We must also examine the psychological toll of social comparison in the age of digital consumerism. Platforms like Instagram and Facebook have turned the American household into a stage. Men are under constant pressure to provide a curated life. This pressure leads to compensatory consumption, where couples buy things to fix underlying marital dissatisfaction. If the marriage feels shaky, maybe a new house will fix it. If the connection is fading, maybe a luxury European cruise will reignite the spark. In reality, these are just expensive bandages on a structural wound. When the divorce eventually happens, the debt incurred from these fixes is often what sinks the man's financial ship. You aren't just splitting assets. You are splitting the debt of 1,000 small consumerist decisions. This masterclass is designed to help you peel back these layers. We are going to look at the divorce industry as a business model. Lawyers, mediators, and even the real estate market benefit when a family unit breaks apart. It creates two consumers where there was once one. It forces the sale of a home, often at a loss or during an inopportune market cycle, generating commissions for agents and fees for banks. It triggers the purchase of new appliances, new furniture, and new vehicles. From a purely GDP-focused perspective, divorce is a win for the economy, but it is a catastrophic loss for the individual man who is left holding the bill. The promise of this deep dive is to provide you with the mental tools to navigate this without losing your mind or your shirt. We will move past the emotional bitterness and into the realm of strategic education. We will discuss how to identify the consumerist triggers in your own life that may be making your legal situation worse. We will look at historical data on asset division and how equitable distribution states differ from community property states, and why your consumer habits in those states can drastically alter your post-divorce net worth. This is not about being anti-marriage or anti-consumer. It is about being pro-reality. It is about understanding that the system you live in is designed to encourage spending and discourage the long-term protection of male-controlled capital. Whether you are currently in the middle of a legal battle, sensing one on the horizon, or simply want to bulletproof your future, you need to understand the intersection of your checkbook and the courthouse. We are going to break down the step-by-step of how to audit your lifestyle, how to communicate with legal counsel from a position of financial literacy, and how to survive the consumerist fallout of a split. The goal is to move you from a state of reactive panic to a state of proactive strategy. You have worked too hard for your resources to let them be liquidated by a system that views your life's work as nothing more than a series of line items on a spreadsheet. Let's begin the process of reclaiming your financial and mental sovereignty. To understand the first pillar of this transition, we must examine the concept of the marital standard of living. In the United States legal system, this is not just a vague term used in passing. It is a quantified metric that determines your financial obligations for years, if not decades, to come. Imagine a man named Mark living in Charlotte, North Carolina, in 2026. Mark is a project manager earning $135,000 a year. Over the last decade, Mark has done exactly what the American consumer engine told him to do. He bought a 4-bedroom home with a manageable mortgage in 2021, but as inflation peaked and the cost of living surged by 2026, his household spending adjusted upward to match. He financed 2 electric vehicles to stay ahead of fuel costs, subscribed to every premium streaming service, and maintained a country club membership because he believed it was a necessary investment in his professional network and his family's social standing. When Mark enters a divorce mediation, the court does not see a man who is over-leveraged and stressed. The court sees a documented history of a high-consumption lifestyle. This is the standard of living trap. Historical trends in family law show that the goal of spousal support is often to maintain the recipient in a lifestyle as close as possible to the one enjoyed during the marriage. For Mark, every luxury vacation he put on a travel rewards card and every high-end kitchen remodel he financed becomes a benchmark. The irony of U.S. consumerism is that the more you spend to make your family happy, the higher the baseline you are legally required to provide once that family unit dissolves. In 2026, with the cost of housing and services at historic highs, this baseline can be the difference between a comfortable middle-class existence and literal insolvency. Consider the case study of a mid-career professional in a state like California or New York. Let us call him David. David spent 20 years building a career in tech. During his marriage, he and his spouse lived in a home valued at $1.2 million. Because of the consumerist push for constant upgrades, They refinance the home twice to pay for private school tuitions and high-end lifestyle choices. Now in 2026, as the marriage ends, David realizes that the equity in the home is far less than he assumed, yet the court views the $1.2 million home as the standard. If David wants to move into a comparable two-bedroom apartment in the same area to remain close to his children, he is facing a rental market where prices have outpaced wage growth for 5 consecutive years. He is effectively trapped by his own previous consumption. The system is designed to look backward at what you spent, not forward at what you can actually afford as a single individual. The machinery of the divorce process itself functions as a secondary consumer market. When you enter the legal arena, you are no longer just a father or a husband. You are a lead in a sales funnel for a multi-billion-dollar industry. This industry includes not just attorneys, but forensic accountants, vocational experts, real estate appraisers, and child custody evaluators. Each of these professionals bills at an hourly rate that would make most corporate executives wince. In 2026, the average cost of a contested divorce in the United States has escalated due to the complexity of digital assets, cryptocurrency portfolios, and the rising cost of expert testimony. A common potential outcome for men who do not understand this is the sunk cost fallacy. You spend $10,000 in legal fees to fight over a furniture set or a boat that is only worth $5,000 on the secondary market. Why? Because consumerism has taught us to attach our identity to our possessions. We feel that losing the items we worked for is a loss of self. The legal system thrives on this emotional attachment. Lawyers are often happy to bill hours for a dispute over a 75-inch television or a riding lawnmower, because the client is acting on principle rather than math. This is where the shift from consumer to protector must happen. You have to realize that in the eyes of the law, your stuff is just a series of depreciating assets. To the consumer mind, that lawnmower is a symbol of your hard work. To the strategic mind, it is a liability that is costing you $400 an hour in legal debate. Furthermore, we have to talk about the debt division. In a consumer-heavy culture, the average American household carries significant non-mortgage debt. As of 2026, credit card balances have reached new peaks. When you go through a divorce, you aren't just splitting the bank account, you are splitting the debt. Many men find themselves in a position where they are ordered to pay off half of a debt that was incurred for things they didn't even want or use. Imagine if your household spent $20,000 on designer clothing and home decor over 2 years. In a divorce, that debt is real, even if the resale value of those items is pennies on the dollar. You are essentially paying for the ghost of past consumption. This is the financial weight that prevents men from being able to invest in their own future post-divorce. To navigate this, you must engage in a process of radical financial auditing. This is the step-by-step detail that most men skip because it is painful. You must look at every recurring expense through the lens of the court. If you are paying for 3 different gym memberships, a premium car wash subscription, and high-tier data plans, you are signaling to the court that you have an abundance of discretionary income. In the lead-up to a legal filing, the consumer mindset would say keep living your life. The strategic mindset says to trim the fat immediately. Historical trends suggest that the financial snapshot taken at the time of filing is one of the most critical pieces of evidence in your case. If you are living a lean, disciplined life, it is much harder for an opposing counsel to argue for an inflated support payment. But here is the deeper layer that most people miss. U.S. consumerism relies on the idea that you can always earn more to cover your spending. It is a growth-at-all-costs mindset. Divorce is a contraction event. It is the one time in your life where your growth mindset can actually work against you. If you show the court that you are a high performer who can always find a way to make an extra $20,000 a year, the court will often bake that extra effort into your obligations. You are essentially being penalized for your productivity. This creates a psychological paradox. The very traits that made you a successful provider in the eyes of society are the ones that make you a target in a dissolution. This leads us to the intersection of consumerism and emotional manipulation. The retail industry spends billions to make us feel inadequate, so we will buy their products. Similarly, the divorce process often uses shame as a tool to keep men writing checks. You are told that if you don't agree to a certain settlement, you are a bad father or a failure as a man. This shame is the ultimate consumerist product. It is sold to you by an industry that profits from your desire to settle quickly and make the pain go away. But making the pain go away with a signature is the most expensive purchase you will ever make. It is a high-interest loan on your future that you may never be able to refinance. As we move forward, we have to look at how this consumerist conditioning affects your behavior in the courtroom and at the mediation table. Most men are trained to be problem solvers and negotiators. You want to find a deal. You want to be fair. But fairness in a consumerist legal system is a subjective term. If you approach a divorce with the same logic you used to buy a car, looking for a win-win or a middle ground, you will likely lose. The system is adversarial by design, and the commodities at stake are your time, your future earnings, and your relationship with your children. Imagine if you could see the hidden ledger that the matrimonial industry uses. Imagine if you knew exactly which consumer habits were being flagged by forensic software to build a case against your financial independence. In the next part of this deep dive, we are going to explore the specific tactics used to weaponize your spending history against you. We will look at the concept of voluntary impoverishment versus lifestyle maintenance and why the car you drive to your first hearing might be the biggest mistake of your entire case. There is a specific reason why the most successful men in these proceedings often appear to be the most modest, and it has nothing to do with being broke. We are about to uncover the tactical silence of the disciplined man, and how to use the rules of the system to protect your life's work from the consumerist shredder. What happens when your own bank statements become the primary witness for the prosecution? We are going to find out. When your own bank statements become the primary witness for the prosecution, the reality of modern data collection crashes into the emotional volatility of family law. In the year 2026, we are living in an era of unprecedented financial transparency. Gone are the days when a man could simply hand over a stack of redacted paper statements and vague tax returns. Today, forensic accountants utilize artificial intelligence and financial aggregator software to scrape every single transaction you have made over the past 3 to 5 years. Every cup of artisan coffee, every recurring subscription box, every impulsive online purchase made late at night, and every upgrade to your leased vehicle is categorized, color-coded, and presented as evidence of your true financial capacity. Consumerism thrives on frictionless spending. You tap your phone, you scan your face, and the product is yours. But in a divorce proceeding, that frictionless spending transforms into a highly detailed roadmap of your priorities, and opposing counsel will use this map to establish what is legally recognized as your historical discretionary income. They will argue that if you had the capital to finance a luxury consumer lifestyle, you certainly have the capital to pay maximum alimony and child support. Your own purchasing habits, driven by a culture that demands constant consumption, are actively weaponized against you to inflate your baseline obligations. Let us look at a case study of a man named Michael living in Dallas, Texas. Michael earns a substantial income as a logistics director. Sensing that his marriage was nearing its end, Michael panicked. He read generic advice online and decided to immediately slash his spending. He canceled the country club membership, traded in his luxury SUV for a used sedan, and stopped buying high-end consumer electronics. He thought he was being smart by lowering his visible standard of living right before the legal filings began. But Michael fell directly into the trap of voluntary impoverishment. In the eyes of the family court system, sudden and drastic reductions in spending or income immediately preceding a divorce are treated with extreme suspicion. Opposing counsel requested a multi-year look-back period. The historical trends of Michael's spending painted a picture of a man who comfortably sustained a high-consumption lifestyle for a decade. The judge did not base the support calculations on Michael's sudden, panicked austerity measures. The calculations were based on the 10-year historical average of his consumer behavior. Furthermore, his sudden drop in spending was framed by opposing counsel as a malicious attempt to hide assets and starve his spouse of her customary lifestyle. The consumerist machine had set his baseline, and trying to unplug the machine at the 11th hour only damaged his credibility in front of the judge. This brings us to a crucial psychological barrier, which is the conflict between how society tells you to project success and how the legal system punishes that exact projection. Imagine if you are scheduled for a deposition or a mediation session. American consumerism has ingrained in you the belief that appearing successful is a prerequisite for being respected. You might feel the urge to wear a tailored suit, display a high-end mechanical watch, and pull into the courthouse parking lot in a pristine late-model luxury vehicle. You have been conditioned to believe these items are armor. In reality, they are targets. When you walk into that room projecting wealth, the mediator, the judge, and the opposing counsel subconsciously anchor their financial demands to your presentation. They see a man who has surplus capital. It does not matter if the suit is financed on a credit card, the watch was a gift, and the car is leased at an exorbitant interest rate that is suffocating your monthly cash flow. The visual language of consumerism speaks louder than your balance sheet. The legal system operates on perception just as heavily as it operates on raw mathematics. When you signal that you are an active, eager participant in high-end consumer culture, you invite maximum financial extraction. The alternative to this is what we call the tactical silence of the disciplined man. The men who achieve the best potential outcomes in these devastating situations are the ones who decoupled their ego from their consumption long before the legal paperwork was ever drafted. They understand that true wealth is invisible, and that ostentatious spending is a massive liability. This requires a fundamental rewiring of your brain. You have to audit your life not just for where your money is going, but for what your money is saying about you to an adversarial third party. You must learn to build a multi-year track record of disciplined, unflashy living. This means prioritizing maxed-out retirement accounts and quiet investments over depreciating consumer goods that sit in your driveway or your living room. It means understanding that the less you require to live, the harder it is for the system to leverage your lifestyle against you. You must transition from a consumer to a capital allocator. A capital allocator does not buy things to impress neighbors who will not be there to help pay the legal retainers. A capital allocator builds defensive moats. Let us break down the exact mechanism of how this lifestyle audit protects you. When you limit your visible consumption, you actively lower the marital standard of living. If historical trends in your bank statements show that your family routinely shops at discount grocers, drives reliable vehicles for 10 years until the wheels fall off, and takes modest road trips instead of international luxury flights, you are establishing a low financial baseline. If a divorce occurs, the mathematical formula used to determine the continuation of that lifestyle is working with much smaller numbers. The gap between your income and your required lifestyle maintenance becomes your post-divorce survival fund. In the current economic climate of 2026, where inflation continues to erode purchasing power, that gap is the only thing standing between you and complete financial ruin. You are essentially starving the beast of the divorce industry before it even knows you are on the menu. The discipline required to do this in a culture screaming at you to spend is monumental, but the potential outcomes of failing to do so are catastrophic. But simply lowering your visible consumption is only the first layer of defense. You can be the most frugal man in your city, driving a 15-year-old truck and wearing discount department store clothing, and still lose half of everything you have ever built because of the physical structure you choose to live inside. The ultimate consumer trap is not the car, the watch, or the vacation. The ultimate consumer trap is the American dream itself, specifically the way it forces men to structure their largest asset. We have been sold a specific narrative about real estate, equity, and safety. What happens when the very sanctuary you bought to protect your family becomes the exact instrument used to dismantle your net worth? In the next part, we are going to dissect the real estate trap, the illusion of the primary residence, and why the roof over your head might be the most dangerous financial liability in your entire portfolio. Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. The information provided in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute professional legal, financial, or psychological advice. Divorce laws vary significantly by state and individual circumstances, and the economic trends discussed are based on historical data and sociological observations. You should not act upon any information in this video without first seeking advice from a qualified attorney, financial planner, or licensed professional in your specific jurisdiction. Every case is unique, and potential outcomes depend on a variety of factors beyond the scope of this general discussion. Please conduct your own due diligence and consult with experts before making any major life decisions. The American dream has meticulously conditioned us to view the primary residence as the ultimate symbol of arrival. From a young age, you are taught that renting is throwing money away, and that purchasing the largest piece of real estate you can qualify for is the most responsible financial decision a man can make. The consumerist engine heavily reinforces this narrative because a house is not just a shelter, it is an anchor for secondary consumption. Once you buy the house, you must buy the lawn care equipment, the smart home security systems, the custom window treatments, and the luxury appliances. The house becomes a hungry organism that constantly demands capital. However, when the marital contract fractures, this emotional sanctuary instantly transforms into the single most dangerous financial liability in your entire portfolio. The illusion of the primary residence is that it represents safety. The reality of the family court system is that the marital home is a highly illiquid, capital-intensive asset that traps men in a paralyzing web of emotional guilt and economic devastation. To fully grasp the mechanics of this real estate trap, Consider the historical trends and a specific case study set in the current economic landscape of 2026. Let us examine a man named Thomas, living in suburban Atlanta. 5 years ago, Thomas and his spouse purchased a 5-bedroom home for $600,000. Following the standard consumer script, they utilized a historically low interest rate to maximize their purchasing power. Over the years, they took out a home equity line of credit, or HELOC, to finance a finished basement and a backyard entertainment space, because the consumer culture dictates that a home must constantly be upgraded to reflect a rising social status. Fast forward to 2026, and the marriage is dissolving. On paper, the home has appreciated to $850,000. Thomas looks at a spreadsheet and believes there is a comfortable cushion of equity to be split. This is the first and most common fatal miscalculation made by men entering the divorce system. Paper equity is a phantom. It does not exist until the asset is liquidated, and the process of liquidation is violently expensive. If Thomas and his spouse are forced to sell the home, that phantom equity is immediately cannibalized by the transactional friction of the real estate market. They will lose approximately 5 to 6% right off the top to real estate agent commissions. They will pay staging costs to make the home marketable, closing costs, title fees, and potential capital gains taxes. Furthermore, a forced sale during a divorce is rarely optimal. Buyers and their agents often sense the desperation, leading to lowball offers. The pristine asset Thomas thought he had is suddenly reduced by tens of thousands of dollars before a single check is ever written to either party. But the forced sale, despite its costs, is often the most mathematically sound option. The true danger arises when men succumb to the emotional weaponization of the home. Imagine if Thomas decides he wants to keep the house to provide stability for his children. The consumerist narrative tells him that a good father protects the family home at all costs. Opposing counsel knows this psychological trigger intimately. If Thomas wants to keep the home, he must buy out his spouse's share of the phantom equity. To do this, he must refinance the mortgage solely into his name. This is where the macroeconomic realities of 2026 become a guillotine. Thomas is forced to trade a historic 3% interest rate for a modern rate that is significantly higher. His monthly mortgage payment does not just increase, it explodes. Simultaneously, his household income has essentially been cut in half, and he is likely facing new monthly obligations for child support and potential spousal maintenance. Thomas has successfully retained the physical structure, but in doing so, he has engineered his own monthly cash flow insolvency. He is officially house poor, working grueling hours simply to pay the utility bills and property taxes on a structure that is now far too large for his individual needs. Alternatively, let us explore the scenario where the spouse demands to keep the house, and Thomas is offered an offsetting asset, such as his retirement portfolio. The court looks at the present value of the home equity and the present value of the 401k and deems it an equitable trade. This is one of the most destructive potential outcomes for a man's long-term financial sovereignty. A primary residence is a depreciating physical structure that requires constant injections of after-tax capital to maintain its value. Roofs leak, HVAC systems fail, and property taxes perpetually increase. A retirement portfolio, conversely, is a compounding liquid asset designed to grow autonomously. By trading a compounding asset for the relinquishment of a liability-generating asset, the man sacrifices decades of future growth. Even worse, if Thomas agrees to let his spouse keep the home but his name remains on the original mortgage, he is actively holding a live grenade. If his ex-spouse misses a single payment, Thomas's credit score is instantly destroyed, rendering him incapable of securing a lease for an apartment or a loan for a reliable vehicle. The bank does not care about the divorce decree. They only care about the names on the promissory note. The marital home also serves as the ultimate anchor for the marital standard of living calculation that we discussed previously. The sheer square footage of the home dictates a rigid baseline of consumption. A 5-bedroom home requires a certain level of heating, cooling, landscaping, and maintenance. When the court calculates spousal support, it looks at the cost required to run that specific physical plant. The consumerist drive that convinced you to buy a larger house than you strictly needed now dictates the size of the monthly check you must write to maintain an ex-spouse in that exact environment. You are effectively chained to the ghost of your past real estate decisions. The house you bought to signify your success is now the very metric used to measure your financial punishment. To survive this phase of the dissolution, you must adopt a radical, almost clinical detachment from the physical property. You must view the marital home strictly as a bundle of highly leveraged, illiquid financial liabilities. The consumer mindset attaches nostalgia to the dining room where holidays were celebrated. The strategic protector mindset calculates the carrying costs, the deferred maintenance, and the true net proceeds of a sale. You must instruct your legal counsel to aggressively strip away the emotional arguments presented by the opposing side. When they claim that selling the home will traumatize the children, you must counter with the historical trends showing that parental financial stability is a far greater predictor of child well-being than a specific zip code or floor plan. You cannot allow the opposing counsel to use your inherent desire to be a provider as a tool to lock you into a toxic real estate arrangement. This shift in perspective is incredibly painful because it requires you to dismantle a core component of the American consumer identity. It requires you to admit that the system you trusted was flawed, and that the physical manifestations of your hard work can be turned into instruments of your own financial ruin. But mastering this detachment regarding real estate is only half the battle. Once the physical assets are divided, the legal system shifts its focus to a far more volatile and emotionally charged arena. The system realizes that while houses can be sold and bank accounts can be split, there is one mechanism that guarantees a permanent, multi-decade pipeline into your future earnings. What happens when the consumerist expectation of lifestyle maintenance is applied not just to your spouse, but to the very concept of modern parenting? We are going to expose the hidden economic machinery of child custody evaluations and why the family court's definition of the best interest of the child often directly correlates with maximum financial extraction. The legal standard of the best interest of the child is the foundational pillar of family law, but in the United States, this standard has been thoroughly colonized by consumerism. Historically, providing for a child meant ensuring access to shelter, nutrition, basic education, and physical safety. By the year 2026, the definition of adequate provision has expanded into a hyper-monetized checklist of lifestyle requirements. The family court system does not exist in a vacuum. It is staffed by judges, mediators, and evaluators who are steeped in the same consumer culture as the rest of the country. Consequently, when the court assesses which environment serves the child best, it frequently defaults to the environment that can sustain the highest level of consumer spending. This creates a terrifying paradigm for men. Your fitness as a parent is no longer judged solely by your moral character, your patience, or your emotional availability. It is increasingly judged by your capacity to fund an escalating array of goods and services that the consumer economy has deemed essential for modern childhood. To understand how this operates in practice, we must look at the machinery of child custody evaluations. When parents cannot agree on a parenting plan, the court appoints third-party professionals, such as a guardian ad litem or a forensic child psychologist. These professionals conduct home visits, interview teachers, and analyze the historical trends of the family dynamic. However, the metrics they use to determine stability are intrinsically tied to capital. They look at the square footage of the proposed living arrangements. They look at whether each child will have their own bedroom and their own dedicated bathroom. They look at the school district ratings, which are directly correlated with local property taxes and housing costs. If you are a father who has been forced to move into a modest two-bedroom apartment to survive the initial financial shock of the separation, while your spouse remains in the heavily financed five-bedroom marital home, the evaluator's consumerist bias immediately flags your environment as less stable. The physical structure, which we previously identified as a massive financial liability, is now weaponized as a proxy for your parenting capability. The system equates high overhead with high-quality parenting. Consider a case study of a man named James, living in the suburbs of Chicago in 2026. James is a regional sales director. Over the past 6 years, his two children have been deeply integrated into the youth sports industrial complex. They play elite travel soccer, which involves private coaching, specialized athletic gear, and weekend hotel stays across the Midwest. They also attend premium summer coding camps and receive private tutoring. This is the modern American childhood, meticulously designed to maximize parental spending. When James enters a custody dispute, he realizes that his income can no longer support this level of extracurricular consumption across two separate households. He proposes a more sustainable, localized approach to their activities. Opposing counsel immediately frames this mathematically necessary reduction as James attempting to deprive his children of their accustomed lifestyle. The narrative presented to the judge is not that James is being financially responsible, The narrative is that James is a disruption to the children's developmental trajectory. The potential outcomes in scenarios like this often involve the court mandating that James continue to pay for these premium consumer experiences, effectively locking his post-divorce budget into a pre-divorce spending model. This economic pressure gives rise to one of the most destructive psychological traps in the post-divorce landscape, which is the Disneyland dad syndrome. When a man is relegated to seeing his children only on alternating weekends, the consumerist instinct kicks into overdrive. Society tells him that he must make every single minute count, and in America, making it count usually means buying something. The guilt of the fractured family unit drives men to overcompensate through intense, concentrated spending. They buy the newest gaming consoles, they pay for expensive amusement parks, and they eat exclusively at high-end restaurants during their visitation time. They are trying to purchase the affection and the connection that was lost in the legal restructuring of their family. But this is a fatal strategic error. Not only does it accelerate the man's path to bankruptcy, but it also signals to the court and to the opposing party that he has vast reserves of discretionary income. If you have the capital to fund a miniature vacation every other weekend, the legal system assumes you have the capital to absorb an increase in your baseline child support obligations. Furthermore, we must examine the actual mechanics of child support calculations in the current economic era. While the formulas vary by jurisdiction, the underlying philosophy is based on the income shares model, which attempts to replicate the proportion of income the parents would have spent on the child if the household had remained intact. But this model assumes a continuous, unbroken line of consumer spending. It does not account for the massive duplication of basic living expenses that occurs when a family divides. By 2026, the cost of basic utilities, groceries, and transportation has surged, yet the child support algorithms often rely on historical economic data that fails to capture the real-time inflation experienced by a newly single man trying to establish a second household. The algorithm operates under the illusion that the man's income has infinite elasticity. It assumes that if the consumer demands of the child increase, the man will simply work more hours, take on a second job, or liquidate his retirement assets to meet the mandate. The system uses the child as a conduit to mandate continued participation in the consumer economy, regardless of the father's actual financial solvency. To counter this, a man must engage in a rigorous process of redefining value outside of the consumer matrix. You must meticulously document your non-financial contributions to your children's lives. You must build a record of time spent helping with homework, attending free community events, preparing meals from scratch, and engaging in low-cost, high-connection activities. When the custody evaluator asks about your parenting plan, your narrative cannot be about what you are going to buy them. It must be about what you are going to teach them. You have to systematically dismantle the opposing argument that a reduction in consumer spending equals a reduction in parental love. You must prepare your legal counsel to aggressively challenge the necessity of every single exorbitant extracurricular activity and premium service that is being used to inflate your baseline obligations. You are not just fighting a custody battle. You are fighting the deeply ingrained cultural assumption that money is the only valid metric of fatherhood. But even if you manage to navigate the treacherous waters of child custody and protect your relationship with your children without totally bankrupting your future, there is another mechanism lurking in the shadows of family law. It is a mechanism designed to ensure that even if the children age out of the system, your income remains tethered to the consumer expectations of your former spouse. It is a concept that was originally designed to prevent destitution, but has morphed into a lifelong dividend paid out to the very person who dissolved the partnership. What happens when the court looks at your earning capacity not as your personal property, but as a shared marital asset that you are obligated to distribute indefinitely? In the next part of this masterclass, we are going to dive into the dark reality of permanent spousal maintenance, the terrifying legal concept of imputed income, and how the state can legally force you to work a high-stress job you hate, simply because your historical consumer habits demand it. We will uncover the true cost of the lifestyle subsidy. The lifestyle subsidy, more formally known as spousal maintenance or alimony, is perhaps the most direct manifestation of how your past consumer choices can chain you to a future of involuntary labor. In the American legal framework of 2026, the concept of alimony has evolved far beyond its original intent of preventing a non-working spouse from becoming a ward of the state. It has become a mechanism of lifestyle equalization. The court essentially looks at the high consumption habits you established during the marriage, the luxury subscriptions, the frequent dining at high-end establishments, the designer wardrobe cycles, and decides that your former partner has a right to continue that specific level of consumption at your expense. This is where the consumerist trap closes its jaws. If you spent years maximizing your lifestyle to prove your success, the law now views that maximum spending not as a luxury, but as a baseline requirement that you are obligated to fund indefinitely. To understand the severity of this, we must look at the legal doctrine of imputed income. Imagine a man named Robert living in Phoenix, Arizona, in 2026. Robert spent 15 years as a high-level executive in the aerospace industry, earning $250,000 a year. The stress of the job, combined with the collapse of his marriage, has left him on the verge of a total burnout. Robert wants to quit his corporate role and take a much lower-paying, lower-stress job teaching at a local community college, or perhaps even starting a small woodworking business. In his mind, he is choosing health and peace over money. However, in the eyes of the family court, Robert is committing what is known as shunning of income. Because Robert has a documented historical trend of earning a high salary, the court can impute that income to him. This means they will calculate his alimony and child support obligations based on what he is capable of earning, not what he is actually earning in his new lower-stress life. If Robert makes the switch to a $60,000 salary, the court can still order him to pay support as if he were still making $250,000. This creates a state-sanctioned form of debt bondage. Robert is legally forced to remain in a high-stress, high-pressure consumerist environment that he hates, simply to fulfill a lifestyle subsidy for a household he no longer lives in. His past success has become his future cage. The system rewards his productivity by making it a mandatory permanent fixture of his life. This leads us to the terrifying reality of permanent alimony. While many states have moved toward rehabilitative or term-limited support, the historical trends in long-term marriages, typically those lasting 10 to 15 years or more, still favor substantial maintenance awards. In 2026, we are seeing a trend where the duration of these payments is often half the length of the marriage, and in some jurisdictions, it can still be indefinite until a significant change in circumstances occurs. Case studies show that for men in their late 40s or early 50s, this can effectively mean they can never afford to retire. If your retirement savings were already split in half during the asset division phase, and you are now required to pay out a third of your remaining monthly income in spousal maintenance, the math for a graceful exit from the workforce simply disappears. You are forced to stay on the consumerist treadmill until your health fails, all to maintain a standard of living for someone else that you might not even be able to afford for yourself. The consumerist culture of the United States exacerbates this by creating a massive gap between gross income and net lifestyle. Most men are taught to focus on the top-line number, the salary, but the court focuses on your ability to pay. If you have been a high-volume consumer, you likely have no liquid cash but high-value assets. The court may order you to liquidate your personal brokerage accounts or take loans against your remaining assets to fulfill maintenance obligations. This is the cannibalization of your future security to pay for your past lifestyle. It is a one-way street where you take all the risk of the labor, the market volatility, and the tax implications, while the recipient receives a tax-free or tax-advantaged transfer of wealth. Furthermore, we must address the psychological impact of the lifestyle subsidy. When a man is forced to work a job he despises to pay for a lifestyle he no longer enjoys, it leads to a profound sense of disenfranchisement. This is not just a financial drain. It is a drain on the soul. The system effectively tells the man that his only value is his utility as a generator of currency. His own desires for a career change, a simpler life, or a more modest footprint are ignored in favor of the consumerist baseline established during the marriage. This is why the tactical silence of the disciplined man, which we discussed earlier, is so vital. If you never established a high consumption baseline, if you lived in a modest home and drove an older car even when you could afford better, the lifestyle subsidy calculation has a much lower ceiling. The less you showed you could spend, the less they can force you to pay. The mechanics of these payments are also increasingly automated in 2026. Wage garnishment and direct withholding are the standard. You never even see the money. It is removed from your paycheck before it hits your bank account. This psychological distancing makes it easier for the state to manage the transfer, but it makes it harder for the man to feel any sense of control over his own labor. You are essentially working for the state to distribute your earnings according to a consumerist formula that does not account for the rising cost of your own individual survival. In a high-inflation environment like 2026, where the cost of rent and groceries for a single man has skyrocketed, being locked into a fixed percentage alimony payment can push you below the poverty line even if you are earning a six-figure salary. To fight this, you must understand the concept of vocational evaluation. Just as the court uses experts to look at your children, they can use experts to look at your career. If the opposing side is trying to impute a higher income to you, you must be prepared with your own vocational evidence. You need to document the changing nature of your industry, the physical and mental toll of the work, and the actual availability of high-paying roles in the current market. You have to turn the consumerist narrative on its head. If society claims that people should pursue their passions and work-life balance, you must use that same rhetoric to justify your shift to a more sustainable lifestyle. But even if you manage to mitigate the damage of the lifestyle subsidy, you are still left with the debris of the marital estate. And in the United States, that debris is often hidden in the most complex corners of our financial lives. We have talked about houses and cars, but we haven't talked about the invisible assets, the ones that the consumerist system encourages you to build but the legal system knows exactly how to tear apart. What happens when the court goes after your intellectual property, your business reputation, or the very skills you spent a lifetime honing? In the next part, we are going to look at the valuation of professional degrees and business goodwill. We will explore how the American legal system has turned your very brain into a marital asset that can be appraised, divided, and taxed. We are going to find out why your career isn't just your job. It's a liability that is currently being appraised by people you've never met. The appraisal of a man's career as a marital asset is one of the most sophisticated traps within the American legal landscape of 2026. In the world of U.S. consumerism, we are taught that our skills, our professional reputation, and our specialized knowledge are our personal property, the result of our late nights, our student loans, and our individual grit. However, the family court system operates under a different economic theory, the theory of the marital enterprise. Under this doctrine, if your career significantly advanced during the years of your marriage, the court may view that advancement as a joint investment. Your professional degree, your medical or legal license, and even the goodwill of your small business are not just personal achievements. They are categorized as marital property subject to valuation and distribution. This means that the very brainpower you use to earn a living is currently being assigned a dollar value by forensic analysts who view your future potential as a harvestable crop. To understand the mechanics of this, we must examine the concept of enhanced earning capacity. Consider the case of a man named Stephen in Seattle, Washington. Stephen entered his marriage as a junior software developer, and over 12 years, climbed the ranks to become a principal architect at a major cloud computing firm. He also completed an executive MBA during the 7th year of the marriage. In 2026, as his divorce proceeds, the opposing counsel brings in a valuation expert. This expert doesn't just look at Stephen's current salary. They calculate the difference between what Stephen would have earned as a developer without that MBA and what he is projected to earn now that he has it. They project this delta over the next 20 years of his working life, adjust it for inflation, and present a present value of his enhanced earning capacity. Even though Stephen hasn't earned that money yet, the court may treat a portion of that multi-million-dollar projection as an asset that exists today. If there aren't enough liquid funds to buy out the spouse's share of Stephen's own brain, the court might offset this by awarding the spouse a larger share of the actual tangible assets, like the retirement accounts or the equity in the home. Stephen is left with his high-paying, high-stress job, but his actual net worth is gutted because he had to pay for the privilege of keeping his own career. This valuation of the invisible becomes even more aggressive when we look at business owners and the concept of enterprise goodwill versus personal goodwill. Imagine a man named Kevin who owns a specialized HVAC consultancy in Ohio. In 2026, Kevin's business is thriving because he has spent a decade building a reputation for reliability and technical expertise. In a divorce, the court will appoint a business appraiser. These appraisers use historical trends and industry multiples to determine the value of the business. But they also look for goodwill, the value of the business beyond its physical trucks and tools. If the appraiser determines that the business has enterprise goodwill, meaning the business has value independent of Kevin's personal involvement, that value is added to the marital pot. Kevin might find himself in a position where he is ordered to pay his spouse half the value of a brand he built, even if that brand is just his own last name on the side of a van. The consumerist drive to build a brand and a legacy backfires in the courtroom, where that legacy is converted into a debt that must be settled in cash. The complexity of these valuations in 2026 is further heightened by the rise of the digital persona. For men who have built careers as influencers, consultants, or public-facing experts, their social media following and digital footprint are now considered marital assets. Case studies from recent years show that a YouTube channel's projected ad revenue or an Instagram account's sponsorship potential can be appraised just like a piece of real estate. The irony is that the more you participated in the consumerist culture of self-branding and personal marketing, the more hooks the legal system has to latch onto. Your likes, follows, and engagement rates are no longer just vanity metrics. They are line items on a balance sheet that a judge will use to determine how much of your digital future belongs to your past. We must also address the double-dipping controversy, which is a significant risk for high-earning men. This occurs when a court counts a man's income twice. First as an asset to be divided, by valuing his business or his enhanced earning capacity, and second as a source for spousal maintenance. While some states have laws to prevent this, the distinction is often blurred in the heat of litigation. You might find yourself paying a lump sum to buy back your business interest, and then immediately being ordered to pay a percentage of that same business's profits as alimony. You are essentially paying for the same dollar twice. This is the ultimate extraction. The system views you as a high-performance machine that must be maintained just enough to keep producing, but whose output is primarily directed toward the settlement of the marital contract. How does a man protect himself from the appraisal of his own identity? The step-by-step reality requires a shift toward asset protection through transparency and professional diversification. You must work with your own forensic experts to distinguish personal goodwill, which is often not divisible, from enterprise goodwill. You have to prove that the success of your career or business is inextricably tied to your individual, daily labor, which cannot be divided, because it hasn't happened yet. This is a technical, legal battle that requires you to stop thinking like a consumer who wants to show off his business's growth, and start thinking like a defendant who needs to emphasize the fragility and risks of his profession. You must document the volatility of your industry, the key man risk associated with your role, and the immense personal effort required to sustain your income levels. Furthermore, we must look at the education and training trap. In the US, there is a pervasive narrative that investing in yourself is always the right move. But if you use marital funds to pay for a high-end certification or a degree during the marriage, the law may view this as a marital investment that requires a return. In 2026, we see cases where men are ordered to reimburse the marital estate for the cost of their own tuition, plus interest, or are forced to share the profit of their higher salary for years to come. The consumerist promise that education is the path to freedom is inverted. In the context of divorce, your education becomes a lien against your future. As we go deeper into this masterclass, we have to recognize that the legal system's interest in your career is only the beginning of the invisible extraction. Beyond your salary and your business value, there is a whole world of shadow assets that you have been told to build for your security, but which are actually the easiest things for the system to seize. We are talking about the deferred compensation trap, the bonuses you haven't received, the stock options that haven't vested, and the pension credits you've earned but can't touch. What happens when the court divides money that doesn't even exist in your bank account yet? In the next part, we are going to look at the unvested future and how the golden handcuffs of corporate America become the iron shackles of the family court. We will explore why your 2027 bonus is already being spent by someone else, and how to survive the liquidity crunch when you are paper rich but cash poor in a 2026 economy that doesn't accept potential as a form of payment for rent. The liquidity crunch of the unvested future is a phenomenon that uniquely punishes the high-performing American male in the year 2026. Within the framework of U.S. consumerism, we are taught to value the total compensation package. We look at our restricted stock units, our performance-based bonuses, and our long-term incentive plans as the ultimate markers of our economic utility. These are the golden handcuffs that keep us working 50 or 60 hours a week, chasing the next vesting cliff so we can finance the next level of consumer lifestyle. However, in a divorce proceeding, these future-dated assets are not viewed as potential rewards for your future labor. They are viewed as earned income that was partially generated during the marital years. This creates a devastating mathematical reality. The court can award your spouse a percentage of assets that do not yet exist in liquid form. You are effectively being taxed on your future sweat and stress before you have even performed the work. To understand the severity of this, let us examine the case of a man named Christopher, a senior engineering lead for a logistics firm in Chicago in 2026. Christopher's compensation structure is typical for his level, a base salary of $180,000, but with a vesting schedule of RSUs worth an additional $120,000 per year over 4 years. In 2026, Christopher is in year 2 of a 4-year vesting cycle. During the divorce settlement, the court applies what is historically known as a time rule formula or a Coxeter fraction. This formula determines the marital portion of the unvested stock by looking at the time Christopher worked during the marriage relative to the total time required for the stock to vest. The result is that Christopher's spouse is awarded a significant portion of his 2027 and 2028 stock tranches. The crisis for Christopher is one of liquidity. In 2026, the cost of establishing a new household, security deposits, first and last month's rent, basic furniture, and a reliable vehicle is at an all-time high. Christopher's liquid cash is nearly zero because most of his wealth is tied up in these unvested accounts. Yet, the legal fees continue to mount at $500 per hour. He is paper-rich but cash-poor. If he wants to buy out his spouse's interest in the future stock to keep his portfolio intact, he has to find cash today that he simply does not have. If he doesn't, he is forced into a qualified domestic relations order or a similar constructive trust, where he has to continue working at a company he may want to leave, just to ensure the stock vests so his ex-spouse can receive her court-ordered share. He is no longer working for his own future. He is working as a fiduciary for his former partner. This is the psychological weight of the unvested future. Consumerism has trained us to constantly look ahead to the next payout. But the legal system turns that forward-looking hope into a backward-looking obligation. Imagine if Christopher's company underperforms in 2027 and the stock price collapses. In many jurisdictions, the valuation used during the divorce was based on the price in 2026. Christopher might end up paying out a cash equivalent based on a high valuation, only to watch the actual asset dwindle to nothing. He takes 100% of the market risk, while the settlement was predicated on a fixed historical snapshot of value. This is a common potential outcome for men in the tech and finance sectors, where compensation is highly volatile. Furthermore, we must address the bonus trap. Historically, bonuses were considered discretionary gifts from an employer. In 2026, corporate America has shifted toward a variable pay model where a large chunk of a man's annual income is tied to year-end performance metrics. If you have been a top producer for 5 years, the court will look at your average bonus and treat it as a recurring guaranteed stream of income for the purpose of calculating support. They don't care if the 2026 economy is facing a recession or if your industry is being disrupted by automation. They see the historical trend of your productivity, and they bake that bonus into your monthly alimony obligation. You are then forced to hit those same high-performance targets every single year, just to stay even with your legal debts. If you have one off year, where you only meet 80% of your quota, you could find yourself in contempt of court because your legal obligation exceeded your actual take-home pay. This leads to a step-by-step erosion of your financial agency. To survive the liquidity crunch, many men are forced into high-interest consumer debt. They take out personal loans or use high-interest credit cards to pay for their daily needs because their primary income is being diverted to satisfy a settlement based on unvested assets. They are essentially borrowing against their own future twice, once to satisfy the court and once to survive the present. By the time the stock finally vests in 2028, most of the gain is already spoken for by the interest on the debt they accrued just to wait for the vesting date. The tactical response to this requires a clinical understanding of valuation dates and separation dates. A man must be meticulously disciplined in documenting exactly when the joint efforts of the marriage ended. Every day you continue to work at a high level after the legal date of separation is a day you are building an asset that should belong 100% to you. But if you haven't established a clear, documented separation, the marital pot continues to grow, and the system continues to claim a share of your post-separation labor. In the 2026 landscape of remote work and digital nomadism, these dates have become blurred, and the consumerist habit of sharing everything on social media can be used to prove that a marriage was intact long after it had functionally ended, purely to extend the window of asset accumulation. We also need to look at the tax liability gap. When unvested RSUs or stock options are divided, the tax implications are often ignored by the court or handled poorly by generalist attorneys. In the US, these assets are often taxed as ordinary income upon vesting. If the court orders you to give 50% of the stock to your ex-spouse, but you are the one who has to pay the 35% tax bill on the total 100% because the shares are in your name, you are left with only 15% of the actual value. You have effectively paid for her lifestyle using your own tax burden. Without a sophisticated tax offsetting clause in your decree, the consumerist dream of stock wealth becomes a tax nightmare that can take years to unwind. This brings us to a fundamental truth of the 2026 divorce experience. The system is designed to favor the person with the most liquidity, not the person with the most wealth on paper. The man who has spent his life following the consumerist script of investing for the long term and building equity is the most vulnerable. He has no maneuverability. He is a stationary target. But as we peel back the final layers of this deep dive, we move beyond the bank accounts and the stock portfolios and into the most intimate and dangerous extraction of all. It is the one thing that no amount of money can truly replace, and yet it is the one thing the consumerist legal system treats as a commodity to be traded. What happens when the court realizes that your time is your most valuable asset, and they decide to put a price tag on your very presence in your children's lives? In the next part, we are going to examine the right of first refusal trap, the monetization of parenting time, and the hidden costs of the custody schedule. We will uncover why the 2026 consumer economy wants you in the office, but the family court system wants you in the visitation column, and how the friction between those two worlds is designed to keep you paying forever. We are about to look at the true price of your time. The true price of your time in the year 2026 is calculated by a cold mathematical formula that pits your career against your character. In the world of US consumerism, time is money. We are taught to trade our hours for a paycheck, and then trade that paycheck for the symbols of a successful life. But in the family court system, time is treated as a zero-sum commodity that determines the flow of capital from your pocket to the marital estate. The system operates on a fundamental friction. The more time you spend working to fund the consumerist lifestyle the court has mandated, the less time you have to spend with your children. Conversely, the more time you spend with your children, the less you are earning, which the court can frame as a failure to provide or even an intentional reduction in income to avoid support. This is the time value trap, and it is meticulously designed to keep you in the office while keeping you in the visitation column. To see how this plays out in the modern day, consider the case of a man named Marcus, a senior consultant in Denver. In 2026, Marcus works in a high-demand industry that requires significant travel and 80-hour weeks during peak seasons. When his marriage dissolved, he fought for a 50-50 custody split. He wanted to be a present, active father. However, the opposing counsel introduced the right of first refusal clause into the parenting plan. On the surface, this sounds like a reasonable child-centric policy. If one parent is unavailable for a set period, say 4 hours, they must offer the other parent the chance to take the children before calling a babysitter. But for a man like Marcus, this clause became a financial and emotional snare. Every time Marcus has a late-night project or a mandatory client dinner to sustain the high income required for his alimony payments, he is legally forced to hand the children back to his ex-spouse. The court then observes the historical trends of these handoffs. Over 18 months, the data shows that the children are actually spending 65% of their time with the mother because of Marcus's work schedule. The mother then files for a modification of support. Since Marcus is now technically a non-custodial parent by volume of hours, his child support payments are adjusted upward. He is effectively paying a premium for the time he is forced to spend working to pay the original support. He is caught in a loop where his hard work to provide for his children is used as the primary evidence to limit his access to them and increase his financial liability. This leads us to the hidden costs of the custody schedule. In a consumer-driven society, every transition is an opportunity for expense. When a man is on a standard alternating weekend schedule, he is often required to maintain a home that is perpetually ready for children who are only there 4 to 6 days a month. He must pay for a multi-bedroom apartment, keep the pantry stocked with their specific consumer preferences, and maintain a secondary set of toys, clothing, and electronics. This is the duplication of consumption that we discussed earlier, but with a cruel twist. The system rewards the parent with more time by lowering their support obligation, while the parent with less time is hit with the highest support payments and the highest overhead to maintain a shadow version of a family home. In 2026, with the cost of a 3-bedroom rental in most U.S. metros being a massive drain on a single income, many men are forced into a state of financial redline just to keep a bedroom empty for 25 days a month. Furthermore, we must address the monetization of parenting time through the lens of child support offsets. Many U.S. states use a formula where the amount of support paid is directly tied to the number of overnights. This turns every hour of a child's life into a negotiable financial asset. In 2026, we are seeing a rise in litigation over as little as 2 or 3 overnights a month. Why? Because according to historical trends, that small shift can represent a swing of $500 to $1,000 a month in child support. It is no longer about what is best for the child's development. It is about the consumerist bottom line. When your time with your children is given a literal cash value, the relationship is stripped of its humanity and replaced with the ledger. Imagine a scenario where you are offered a promotion that requires you to relocate or increase your hours. In the consumerist mind, this is a win: more resources, more security. In the 2026 divorce mind, this is a dangerous gamble. If the promotion reduces your overnights, you are not just losing time. You are increasing your monthly payout. For many men, the math shows that the raise they receive for the promotion is almost entirely consumed by the resulting increase in child support. They are taking on more stress and more responsibility for zero net gain in their personal quality of life. The system has effectively capped your ability to improve your own circumstances by tethering your growth to a proportional increase in your extraction. The psychological toll of this cannot be overstated. When a man realizes that his labor is being used to fund a household that he is increasingly marginalized from, a profound work-life resentment sets in. He is working for a system that treats him as a secondary character in his own children's lives, while treating his income as the primary source of their lifestyle. This is the ultimate consumerist irony. You are told to work hard so you can enjoy your family, but the harder you work, the more the legal system separates you from them to ensure the money keeps flowing. To navigate this, the step-by-step reality requires a strategic defense of your calendar that is just as rigorous as the defense of your bank account. You must treat your parenting time as an unmovable, non-negotiable professional commitment. This often means making the difficult choice to decline the overtime, to turn down the promotion, or to move into a lower-paying role that offers a stable local schedule. By prioritizing time over the pursuit of the next consumerist milestone, you are performing a defensive maneuver. You are stabilizing your overnights, which in turn stabilizes your financial obligations and, more importantly, solidifies your role in your children's lives as a person, not just a paycheck. But as we enter the final stage of this masterclass, we have to look at the light at the end of the tunnel, or the lack thereof. We have explored the assets, the debts, the career appraisals, and the time value traps. But what happens when the legal battle finally ends? Many men believe that the final decree is the finish line. They think that once the judge signs the paper, they can finally start rebuilding. But the 2026 consumer economy and the family court system have one final surprise for the unwary. What happens to the man who finally pays off his obligations only to find that he has no identity left? How do you rebuild a life when the system has spent a decade defining you solely as a provider unit? In the 10th and final part of this series, we are going to talk about the rebirth of the sovereign man. We will discuss the psychological reconstruction, the traps of the rebound consumption phase, and how to build a future that is truly yours, free from the consumerist ghost of the marriage. The final lesson is not about how to save your money, but how to save yourself. The psychological reconstruction of the sovereign man begins at the moment you realize that the person who walked into the courtroom is not the same person who is walking out. In the year 2026, the American man is conditioned to define himself by his throughput, how much he earns, how much he spends, and what kind of lifestyle he provides for others. When the divorce decree is finalized and the dust of asset division settles, many men experience a profound identity crisis. You have spent a decade or more as a provider unit, a human ATM for a consumerist machine. When that machine is dismantled, you are left with a void. The danger in this moment is the rebound consumption phase. This is a well-documented phenomenon where men, feeling the sting of their perceived failure, attempt to buy back their masculinity. They finance the luxury motorcycle, they overspend on a high-tech bachelor pad, or they dive into expensive dating rituals to prove they are still viable in the social marketplace. This is simply the same consumerist trap wearing a different mask. You are attempting to heal a spiritual wound with retail therapy, and in 2026, with credit interest rates at these levels, it is a path back to the same financial instability you just escaped. To build a future that is truly yours, you must first survive the period of absolute stillness. Imagine a man named David in Columbus, Ohio. In 2026, David has just signed his final papers. He has moved into a small functional apartment. His bank account is significantly lower than it was 2 years ago, and his calendar is no longer dictated by the frantic demands of a high-overhead household. The consumerist voice in his head is screaming at him to upgrade his life, to show his ex-spouse and his peers that he is winning. But the sovereign man understands that winning is not about the display. It is about the margin. The margin is the distance between what you earn and what you need to be happy. For the first time in his adult life, David has the opportunity to redefine that margin. He chooses to live significantly below his means, not out of necessity, but as a tactical choice to regain his autonomy. He realizes that every dollar he does not spend on a status symbol is a minute of freedom he has bought back from the system. Historical trends show that men who successfully navigate the post-divorce era are those who pivot from being consumers to being creators or investors. This is the shift from the outward-facing ego to the inward-facing mission. You must conduct a post-mortem on your consumerist ghost. Look at the items you lost in the divorce: the house, the cars, the furniture. Ask yourself, did those items truly belong to you, or did you belong to them? Most men find that they were merely the stewards of a lifestyle they were forced to maintain. The sovereign man rejects this stewardship. He builds a lean, mobile, and resilient life. In 2026, this might mean adopting a minimalist financial framework, focusing on liquid assets that cannot be easily appraised or encumbered, and prioritizing experiences and skill building over the accumulation of physical matter. This is not about being cheap. It is about being unleverageable. The next step in this deep dive is the reconstruction of your social value. U.S. consumerism teaches men that their value in the dating pool is tied to their ability to provide a lifestyle. In the post-divorce world, you will be tempted to lead with your wallet to attract a new partner. This is a catastrophic error that invites the same cycle to repeat. The sovereign man leads with his character, his fitness, and his purpose. He understands that a partner who is attracted to the lifestyle he can provide is a partner who will eventually become a litigant for that same lifestyle. By living a high-value, low-overhead life, you filter for quality. You find people who are interested in the man, not the consumer unit. This is how you protect your future earnings from being capitalized into a second marital standard of living that you cannot sustain. We must also discuss the concept of the time audit for the sovereign man. Throughout this masterclass, we have talked about how the system monetizes your time. Now that you are single, you have a surplus of time that was previously occupied by marital friction and consumerist maintenance. Do not give this time back to the office just to earn more money that you have been conditioned to believe you need. Instead, invest that time into your own human capital. Learn the skills you neglected. Rebuild your physical health, which is the only asset the court cannot divide. Historical trends in male longevity suggest that the stress of divorce and high-consumption living takes years off a man's life. Reclaiming those years through a disciplined, low-stress lifestyle is the ultimate ROI. As we look at the case studies of men who have thrived 5 to 10 years post-divorce, a clear pattern emerges. They are the men who stopped comparing their lives to the curated images of others. They stopped being the useful idiots of a marketing machine that told them a bigger house equaled a better father. They became the architects of their own contentment. They realized that the divorce, while painful, was a forced liquidation of a failing business model. The model of the high-debt, high-stress American household. With that business closed, they were free to start a new venture themselves. The sovereign man also understands the importance of the legacy beyond the ledger. In 2026, the consumerist narrative tells you that your legacy is the inheritance you leave behind. The sovereign man knows that his true legacy is the strength and independence he models for his children. By showing them that a man can be happy, fulfilled, and respected without being a slave to his possessions, he breaks the multi-generational cycle of consumerist debt. He teaches his children that value is intrinsic, not extrinsic. This is the most powerful form of protection you can provide. But how do you maintain this sovereignty when the world is constantly trying to pull you back into the trap? How do you resist the urge to settle down again into the same structures that failed you? The answer lies in the constant vigilance of your financial and emotional boundaries. You must treat your life like a fortress. You allow people in, but you never give them the keys to the armory. You maintain separate accounts, you utilize premarital protections if you choose to enter new legal contracts, and you never again allow your standard of living to drift upward without a corresponding increase in your personal freedom. This masterclass was designed to pull back the curtain on the intersection of family law and the American consumer engine. You have seen how your signatures, your spending, and even your time have been turned into commodities. You have seen how the system thrives on your desire to be a good provider by turning that virtue into a financial hook. But now you have the data, you have the case studies, you have the framework to move from a reactive state of survival to a proactive state of sovereignty. The divorce help you truly needed wasn't just a list of lawyers. It was a map of the labyrinth you were walking through. Now that you are standing at the exit of that labyrinth, The question is no longer, how do I survive? The question is, what will I build with my freedom? The sovereign man does not look back at the wreckage with regret. He looks at it as the cost of his education. He is smarter, leaner, and more dangerous to a system that relies on his compliance. The lessons of this 10-part deep dive are the foundation of your new life. Use them to build something that cannot be liquidated. Use them to save your money, but more importantly, use them to save yourself. The era of the consumer husband is over. The era of the sovereign man has begun. This is the end of part 10, but for you it is the beginning of year 1. Turn the knowledge into action. The future is unwritten, and for the first time, you are the only one holding the pen.